Ready? Call us back into open session from closed session.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we come back in from closed session.
Okay, I have a motion that we come back in from closed session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Then we'll vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCarroll?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCarroll?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. All right, we have to, can't remember the word. Certify that we only discussed what was legal in closed session. Somebody have that statement? Whereas the Carroll County Board of Supervisors convened a closed session this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and on a motion to close the meeting in accordance to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. Whereas Section 2.23711D of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Board of Supervisors that such closed session was conducted in conformity with the Virginia law. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Carroll County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting required under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act was heard, discussed, or considered in the closed session to which this certification applies, and only such business matters were identified in the motion by which the closed session was convened, were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which the certification applies. Do you have a motion on that?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we certify those statements.
Okay, I have a motion that we certify those statements. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Moore?
I so certify.
Mr. McCraw?
I so certify.
Mr. Hill?
I so certify.
Mr. McCraw?
I so certify.
Dr. Littrell?
I so certify.
And I will also say I so certify. Okay. Citizens' time. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. At this time, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and the invocation. Robbie, if you'll lead us, please.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together, and thank you for this beautiful day that you've provided us. Lord, we ask that you watch over us, keep us safe, and protect us as we go through our days. Lord, we ask that you be with us as we go through this business meeting tonight, and ask that it be conducted in good accord. Lord, we ask you to watch over us, keep us safe in our travels, and bring us back at our next appointed time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Robbie. Okay, next item on the agenda is citizens' time. And I have before me a request to be heard from a citizen. Well, there's several of them here. Okay. You have them recorded. Thank you.
Rob Swagger. Hello, everyone. My name is Rob Swagger. I currently live in Cana and have lived in Carroll County for the majority of my life, with the latest stint starting in 2000. I have so many concerns about the budget, about taxes, about funding for education, and about the future of the county that I call home. I look forward to your answers, and I would love to have this in the minutes of the immediate meeting. The budget. I have a few questions here that I feel the county needs to have answered. I've asked around to some citizens, and no one had an answer. Number one, Per the latest article in the Carroll News, Mr. Hill of the Board of Supervisors stated that we are not experiencing a budget shortfall and that we're only trying to put a $5 million to $7 million cushion into the bank. Why are we closing a major program, rec department, and requesting millions of dollars in cuts for the school system since we are not experiencing a budget shortfall? Number 2, if the county is getting back $300,000 per month in back taxes and have received this for months, why is this not going to build the $5 to $7 million cushion? Number 3, the school system has cut out $1.2 million, I believe, from its current budget. Why is that not going towards the building of the cushion? Number 4, if, as reported by Mr. Dalton, the county has never had a $5 to $7 million cushion, and it is not required by law, yet the balanced budget is, which the Board of Supervisors says we have balanced, then why such a ferocious push to make this happen immediately? Number 5, how did we go from $9 million in surplus just 3 years ago to being in the position we are in now? Number 6, why is Carroll County sitting on highly valuable property on I-77 at exit 14 that houses a now recreation department when it could be sold? It would take a fraction of money from that sale to build an outdoor pool, ball fields, playground, picnic areas, etc. for county recreation similar to Randolph Park in Pulaski County. Taxes and a potential increase. Again, more questions with no answers. Number 1, why the push to raise taxes when we are trying to create a $5 to $7 million cushion that is not required, though I agree it would be nice to have. Number 2, if raising taxes is going to drive people out, or the people that do stay are not able to afford the higher taxes, thus causing an even worse paying tax rate, why do it? Number 3, if we have a balanced budget and just want to have a cushion that Mr. Dalton says were never pursued before, why the sudden urgency at the cost of education and higher taxes? Number 4, why not cut the Treasury and Taxation departments for Carroll County, which are another part of the huge reason we're told that this is occurring due to not collecting taxes, and outsource them to save money? I hate to see anyone lose a job, but if they are a big part of the problem, why are we not looking to solve the problem? Cutting education funding and jobs will not fix the main problem. Number 5, currently, Carroll County citizens have a very bare amount of benefits from the taxes we pay. Number 1, we have no businesses coming in. Number 2, our pool has been shut down for a long time, and we have to go outside of the area for basic recreation and other counties' localities provide. Number 3, our sheriff's department relies on speed traps by off-duty deputies to make ends meet. Number 4, our education system is very lacking, and not due to teachers, because we are blessed with amazing teachers that love our children and treat them as their own. Our teachers have to pay for supplies out of their own pockets while being some of the lowest paid in the state. Number 5, our secondary roads are in horrible shape. Number 6, and I could keep going. Education cuts. To me, this is the largest sin of them all. I graduated from CCHS in 1993. At that time, I left the county with zero plans to ever return. I did end up returning after being lured back into the area by a job at Twin County Regional Hospital. I left the job at Twin County Regional Hospital in 2005, and as a computer programmer, web developer, have worked for companies outside of Carroll County for 15 years because there's nothing in Carroll County for me to do due to lack of businesses coming into the area, which is partially due to poor infrastructure and educational opportunities. In 2004, my firstborn daughter was ready to start public schools. After doing research, I chose to send her to Gaylite schools even though I lived in Carroll County. Why? Because of things like this. I first moved to Carroll County as an 11-year-old entering the 6th grade at what was then HES. It was completely absurd how far ahead I was of the other 6th graders. I moved from Danville City Schools, where I also played the cello in the school orchestra, where I took French classes in the 4th grade, where I was part of a talented and gifted program that pushed me to learn and explore, to a school system that had no money to provide anything near those types of opportunities, and it wasn't due to the teachers and lack of ability on their part. I had amazing teachers throughout my time here that I adore to this day. The majority of my schoolmates had left the area because there is nothing here. Our children are graduating and leaving because there is nothing here. I now have 2 children in Carroll County schools, a daughter with special needs at CCHS, a son that is a first grader at Laurel Elementary, and will soon have a daughter starting kindergarten in 2021. My wife is a teacher in Carroll County and has been for 16 years. If more cuts are made to Carroll County schools, we will be forced to pull our children out of Carroll County schools and move them to Surry County in Mount Airy, where they have access to many more opportunities. Carroll County school buildings are in rough shape. Cladesboro Elementary has mold growing inside it. Kids have to charge meals because the parents can afford them, while other counties offer free meals to all children. The technology in the school is outdated. The opportunities and resources available to our children are slim to none. Cutting more money to an already dilapidated system is not the answer, and the schools are the only thing that Carroll County has going for it right now. There are no future for our children here. Where is the disconnect? From the mixed information that we are getting from newspaper articles about board meetings and from the board meetings themselves, it appears that no one really knows what is going on. You all seem to be relying on the recommendations of an interim administrator who only provides 2 answers: cut from the school system and raise taxes. At least one board member has openly stated that he didn't even look at the budget from last year when voting on it. Seriously? Is that okay? If I performed at my job the way the Board of Supervisors performs for the county, I would have been fired years ago. The board either needs to step up or step aside, or both. The Good Old Boy network needs to be removed and is obviously no longer viable, if it ever was. In closing, other than a beautiful place with amazing people residing in it, Carroll County has nothing to offer. My oldest child moved out of the area to find work. I expect all of my children will move out of the area to find work when their time comes. I'm blessed that I can work from home, but my work options are limited to those far outside the area. In fact, I'm currently working for a company based in Alabama. My wife is currently blessed to be a teacher in the Carroll school system, but how much longer is that going to last with cuts? We are failing our home and its citizens, our neighbors, our families, our friends, and it starts with you. How can we right this ship? We can build up our community instead of tearing away more from it. Raising taxes is not the answer. Cutting full funding from our schools is not the answer. I implore you to vote no to any school cuts and tax increases, especially if we are just trying to pad our savings. There are better ways to do it, and you, those who have been voted in to represent us, must look at those things, and hopefully that will start with answers to the above questions. I thank you for your time and attention to this letter. Peggy Burcham. I am a Piper's Gap voter. I want to express my deep concern for the insurance increase for families of Carroll County employees. There seemed to be no discussion or any concern for what the major increase of either $400 or $650 per month is causing these families. Surely another low-cost option could have been located. In the letter to the citizens, a higher deductible plan was mentioned, but is not evident in the choices provided. The 2 choices listed above were the only options for families. The high deductible plan offered in previous years has been taken away. There are no other plans offered by this decision. A jump in cost of something so necessary with such a short time to determine what to do is irresponsible. Many of the families affected work in services that support and help maintain Carroll County as a safe, welcoming, helpful place to live. They are officers, teachers, school employees, county employees, and DSS employees. The cost of insurance, if a family incurs child care costs with the new plans, would not leave enough to pay taxes. The parents would be better off not working and signing up for benefits. Some of these families only have one income. They may be a single parent with 2 children, or a 2-parent family paying child care, mortgage, and car payments, leaving very little for other things. I know you have difficult choices to make and respect your positions, but surely there must be some better insurance options that are more affordable. I also read in the letter to citizens the concept of moving to a catastrophic plan instead of preventive insurance plan would save money. The flaw in that thinking is when someone doesn't take care of the smaller health issues, it causes greater loss of work time, reduction of quality of work, and cost because health issues are not addressed, causing catastrophic illnesses or death of a parent or child. It can also cause people to work sick because they can't afford to go to the doctor. This can increase the spread of illness through the workplace, requiring more lost work time. Example, the flu or COVID-19. The letter to our citizens also compared the cost of Medicaid recipients paying up to 25% of their income for Medicare. The county insurance premium increase is equal to more than 50% of employees' salaries. Many of the elderly you referred to are farmers in our area being affected by the land use tax modifications also discussed in your letter. The benefits package offered by an employer can be a deciding factor for applicants who are qualified for open positions. Why would a young person or family come to work here and enroll their children in school if Carroll County can't offer salary or benefits equivalent to some of the other localities to maintain the excellent teachers and staff, or want to be in our law enforcement or other jobs? Our county and schools need young families here to increase the number of students and subsequent funding because enrollment increased. Our county needs these young families, or soon there will be no viable base of people to pay taxes. Please look for a better insurance plan option. Do not discourage your employees from working. Jessica Krotz. I'm writing to you regarding the Carroll County Employee Health Insurance Premium Increase. It is my understanding that board members were misled to thinking the change would only affect deductibles. However, the new plan increases the monthly premium costs paid by employees by hundreds of dollars. I have lived in Carroll County since I was 3 years old. I graduated Carroll County High School, graduated college, got married, and had 2 amazing children. 6 years ago, I went through a divorce and became a single mother. I purchased a modest brick home in the Cana community, and I began working at Carroll County DSS. I earn less than $30,000 a year, so money is already pretty tight. I receive minimal support and do not have a spouse to help with the financial burden of the new insurance premiums. My mortgage is $670 per month, with utilities, auto expenses, and the new $1,156 family plan health insurance premium. Very little is left in my budget for feeding my family. I am deeply concerned how I will be able to provide for my children when literally half of my income will be going to health insurance. I'm a law-abiding citizen and a good parent. I work full-time and pay my taxes, yet I feel as though I'm being penalized for being a single parent. For my family and others in similar circumstances, I respectfully ask you to reconsider the insurance premium increase for county employees. Thank you. Mike and Julie Combs. We would like to request the board to revisit the health insurance rates to county employees that was voted on and approved April 27, 2020. Over 42% of your employees are currently carrying the health insurance at either the dual or family rate. An increase of 170% in 1 year is totally unheard of. We understand raising the rates, but does it all have to happen in 1 year? In our particular case, we are paying $466 for a high deductible plan that was not even one of the plans chosen to keep for the upcoming year. Our family will automatically be placed on the Key Advantage 1000 plan recommended by Mr. Dalton, going to a monthly premium of $1,156, a difference of $690 per month. We have been reminded that an $1,100 premium is not uncommon, but to get there all in 1 year is ridiculous. Let's look at the county employee just starting out, making roughly $30,000 annually. If he or she comes on board with the family, $13,320 of their salary is going to pay for health insurance, leaving them $16,680 to deduct federal and state taxes, FICA, and VRS. If an employee chooses to claim the largest number of exemptions allowable, he or she might net between $14,000 and $15,000 a year to live on, barely over $1,000 a month. In addition to payroll taxes, they now have higher real estate and personal property taxes to pay this year than they did last. It used to be that if you were able to obtain a job with the county or state, you were set for life. You are well cared for and respected. This comment was made to us in an email from the supervisor at large. When local government offers benefits to its employees that are above what the citizen can obtain, it is wrong. We are citizens. We are taxpayers. We are employees of the Carroll County Sheriff's Office and Carroll County Public Schools. What has happened to the pride and the goal to want to be a county employee? We have over 25 years of service each with the Sheriff's Department and the school system and have witnessed health insurance increases over the years anywhere from 9 to 18%. That is a far cry from 170%. Mr. Dalton is all about budgeting. Can we not develop a goal or a plan to get the premiums where they are not approved to be over a period of time and not an all in one year?
Okay, that brings us to the next item on the agenda, payment of invoices. Do I have a motion that we pay the invoices as presented?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
I have a motion to pay the invoices as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a motion that we accept the minutes of the previous meeting?
I'll make a motion that we receive the minutes of the previous meeting.
Okay, I have a motion that we accept the minutes of the previous meeting. Do I have a second?
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw? And Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. The next item is the old business. Under item A, Blue Ridge Plateau Initiative. And I'm looking for it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir.
this is additional information that is being presented by the group talking about building a processing plant over at the industrial park. DHCD reviewed their application and sent in a letter of 8 or 9 items that they needed to identify. They going through the process of identifying and responding to those items. This is the second batch of the items they have presented, and we will, when we finalize that, we'll put it all in one package and bring it back for the board to consider.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So we don't need to do anything with that right now?
Or for an update on the board of where we're at with that process for the meat processing plant.
Okay, thank you, sir. Next item is Go Virginia Region 1.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, several months ago, we had a discussion about a cattle processing facility to be located over in the industrial park off Expansion Drive. This is an official letter from the Go Virginia Region 1 that they're notifying us that they're withdrawing that grant. award of $100,000, but they're ready and able and willing to assist us once a suitable package is ready that has all the details, encloses with business plans, et cetera. And Ms. Kaylin Hunter is our advocate over there. Mike Quillen wrote the letter.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, new business. Item A, continuity ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You'll recall that on March 24th, 2020, the board passed a continuity of local government ordinance in response to the COVID-19 crisis that enabled the Board of Supervisors and other public bodies of the county to conduct public business by alternative means that would honor recommendations, best practices for social distancing. You will also recall that it was passed as an emergency ordinance per 15.2-1427 of the Code of Virginia. And per that code section, an emergency ordinance can remain in effect for no longer than 60 days. With the way our board meeting schedule is set up, if we advertise for the May 26th meeting to adopt a more long-term continuity ordinance, it's going to put us over that 60 days. It will have a lapse period of just a few days. So we need something tonight to just bridge the gap, essentially. What you have before you in your packet is very similar to what was adopted on March 24th. However, it is a little different, and then it does have a few more provisions that focus on a situation where a quorum of the public body might be sitting presently, but the public is only able to participate remotely rather than, I think what was contemplated when the crisis first hit is that everyone would be on a Zoom meeting or something. But since we're able to at least safely socially distance in this room up to a limit of 10 people, we've been having meetings with a quorum physically present, and this ordinance addresses that a little more directly. So it would be my recommendation to pass this as an emergency ordinance to remain in place until the May 26th meeting, when we will be able to have the full public hearing.
Okay, everybody heard that? Do I have a motion on the floor to accept this?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell? And I will vote yes. Thank you, Council. Next item, resolution, fringe benefits.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you a proposed resolution. It has long been the policy of the Board of Supervisors that Board of Supervisors members receive health benefits in addition to salary in accordance with Section 15.2-1414.3. And the proposed ordinance before you would be to memorialize that policy as consistent with prior practice.
Okay. Everybody understand what he's talking about? Do I have a motion that we accept this resolution?
I make a motion, we accept this resolution.
I have a motion on the floor that we accept this resolution for fringe benefits to the County Board of Supervisors. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
No.
Mr. Hill?
No.
Mr. McCraw? Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So the motion does not. 3-3. Motion denied. Okay. Next item, resolution or emergency services stimulation funds.
Mr. Chairman, as part of the COVID-19, the federal funding provided funds back to the EMS, the Fire and Rescue Squads, county, in the amount shown in the memo. We had asked that that be amended, appropriated, as shown on the second page, to the Carroll EMS is $66,258.42. The Laurel Rescue Squad, $28,1142. Piper's Gap is $67,39.82. And Laurel Fork, $167.16. That should give us a total stimulus package of $75,976.42. And that funding is broken down based off the call volume and the funds originally generated on the prorated basis.
Could you explain the difference between the addition of the three numbers on the right and the 75,000 at the bottom?
Dr. Littrell, what we were trying to show on the left-hand side was the total monies that had been distributed back through the call volume and billing of the county. And then we distributed the stimulus money back on that same call volume. That's how we understood the directions from the federal government, that when it was sent back to us, that they'd be distributed back to each one of the squads that answered calls and based off the billing, because it was really based off of that billing that was submitted to the federal government.
Thank you, but where's the 75,000 come from?
Adding the 66,000, if I can get my glasses right here, 66,000, the 2811, the 6739, and the 167. If you add all those, hopefully our math comes up to 75,000. All those on the right-hand side, that's the breakdown each squad would get.
I've got like, in round numbers, 2,800, 6,700, and $167.
And the top one is in red, is 66,000.
That doesn't show on my, that doesn't show.
Mine don't either.
Yeah, it don't show on ours, it's blacked out.
It's blacked out.
Just pass it around.
Okay.
You have to add those four columns.
Okay.
You can't see no
It's in
white, it's
black.
just black.
It's just black.
We apologize for that.
I thought my addition was bad.
You were scaring me there for a second. I had the original, so we redacted yours.
Okay, I understand that, but.
Does anybody else want to see this? I'm sorry, I apologize for that.
At least I was paying attention.
Yes, sir, you were. You had me scared. I thought I had something wrong there. I apologize for that, Joe.
So I assume it takes a motion to approve that.
Yes, sir. That's amendment and appropriate those
I
funds.
make a motion, we approve that.
Emergency service stimulus funds.
That's correct.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Next item on the agenda is VACORP Carroll Fire EMS.
Mr. Chairman, over the next few board meetings, you will be getting several, the Virginia Association of Counties insurance policy renewals. This specific one, we got on April the 29th after the last board meeting, is for the workman's compensation and employer's liability coverage for the fire and EMS, not only for the Carroll Fire and EMS squad, but also the rest of the squads, volunteer squads out in the county.
Okay, did everybody understand that?
And these are the numbers that will be presented on the May 26th board meeting in your budget for the insurance for these, the fire and EMS and rescue squads.
Any other discussion?
We would ask that you accept these and authorize us to sign them and submit those back in so the coverage doesn't lapse.
I make a motion that we accept the proposal for the insurance for the Carroll County Volunteer Fire and EMS and authorize staff to provide signatures for them.
Have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
A second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Next item on the agenda, Csa Supplemental Funding.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have several documents in the board package concerning Department of Social Services current status. The first letter you have, a memo, requests the additional appropriation from the Board of Supervisors so that we will have adequate funds to pay our CSA bills to the end of the year. Currently, it's projected we will need an additional $241,843.21. If, as you go through the other budget numbers, and we discussed in our finance board meeting the other day, through the rest of the year, we will be back once again for additional appropriations. It appears on the other side on public assistance also. But for tonight, we would ask for that additional appropriation as requested by Ms. Isom.
Do we have that money?
We do have money to cover it. As always within our budget, that will make things very, very tight at the end. We have been budgeting and cutting funds on other departments, knowing at the end of the year, as happened last year, that there will be these unknown requests coming to you. But instead of doing it on June the 30th this year, we're trying to bring them forth as you see those so that we can budget it, because we need to anticipate these in next year's budget up front and not budget numbers that are unrealistic on expenditures for next year. And under the CSA is one of the mandated programs, I think Mr. McGraw's on that board, that it is what they call a sum sufficient. Once those services are ordered through either the court or special placements, you have to pay that bill no matter what the bill is.
Right, I understand that, but the last thing that I saw from you, we only had $144,000 left in our budget for the rest of the year.
that's the reason it requires an amendment of appropriations. If you'll go on later, excuse me if I may. If you look at the treasurer's report that's on the consent calendar, you will see that currently cash in hand on April the 30th, we had $13.5 million cash on hand. That is just a little bit more than $2 million than we had last year. A lot of that has to do with the budget cuts. At the end of the year, when it comes to, we've still got 2 months, May and June, to spend out of that money. And if projections, if you keep spending money the way we're spending currently, you'll be very close to the $9 million you had last year on June the 30th. The bad part of that is you need about $12 million on June the 30th to make it through. Hopefully, twice a year taxation collections will shore up those accounts that we do not do what we did last year and withhold paying bills for a while.
Okay.
On that treasury report that you brought up there, the school there, and it says the payment due, is that took out of that too, or is that the whole, the $1.5 million there? So that's
School funds?
a pretty big lick there, yeah.
Mr. Moore, those are the funds that's been transferred over
Already?
already.
Okay.
And that's included in the 13.5.
Okay.
There's only 11.6 of unallocated funds. The 1.576 are funds that's been transferred so the school system can pay their bills. And the funds held for others below that are funds that are specific purposes that the Code of Virginia requires that you can't spend except for those asset forfeiture funds or funds that the sheriff had cases against people. Those assets were forfeited to him. He can spend it on drug-related items the same way with the Commonwealth Attorney. The flexible spending plan is for the high deductible plan. That's money that's put into that. The narcotics fund is money that the sheriff has based off the narcotics investigations. Performance bonds held in escrow, those are bonds such as erosion sediment control bonds, stormwater bonds, planning commission bonds, all kinds of different things. Money, if they fully comply with the requirements in the bond and perform, that money will be returned to those individuals. It's only put up in case of failure to comply with the terms and conditions. And the last two, sheriff, local criminal fund and special welfare fund, are controlled by the sheriff at DSS and can only be spent for funds there.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? I guess you need a resolution that we pay that.
To amend and appropriate those funds to that department, be the request that she has.
Have a request to amend the funds for CSA.
The fact that we have basically no choice, I'll make the motion.
Yeah,
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is DSS fiscal year 20 year-to-date expenditures and reimbursements.
That was part of the report we just had.
Okay. All right. Next item on the agenda is consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I rarely do this, but if we may we pull out the treasurer's reports out of this and talk about them just a little bit about where we are with collections and things out of the consent calendar? That would
Okay.
require a motion and a vote from the board to remove those. But I think it's pretty important, since we've talked budgets and some other things tonight, that we talk about those two reports.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we move that out of the consent agenda.
Okay, have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, second, any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
Do we need to go ahead and approve the rest of the, I make a motion that we approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we approve the rest of the consent calendar. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Next item on the agenda, Enterprise Zone, current incentives.
Mr. Chairman, if we may just go back to those treasurer's reports before we move on.
Okay?
One of the things I just wanted to point out before you adopt the treasurer's report, the difference that you have in cash and banks and the bottom line of total of all funds this year. We've had a lot of comments about fund balances, where we needed to be, et cetera. If everybody goes through the county budgets and our annual fiscal report, financial report that's on the website, it does show that we have some money at the end of the year. However, the taxes in the past have never been collected, are not collected or sent out until December. This year, we're going to twice a year taxation, which the tax checks go out. So hopefully, will help the cash flow. If all of you remember, last year, as we got to August and September, Mr. Moore, you weren't here, you were in the audits, that we didn't have enough funds to pay all of our bills. It is important for everybody to realize that we only have a certain amount of funds that we budget each and every year off personal property, real estate, merchant's capital, and machine and tools. Then we have meals tax and a few other items. If you look through the treasurer's report, you're seeing a huge drop in meals tax, transient occupancy tax, and some other local taxes that for the rest of this year, which will have some shortfalls on, and that will, based off everybody's projections from the state, those will continue on even into sales tax into next year. That has a dramatic impact on our budget. If you will go to the bottom line on the treasurer's report and collections, basically local dollars that we get in are about $34 million. That's total dollars, and we try to balance that. At last meeting, we talked about all the requests we had of about $40 million and how we could budget and what it would take to get there. That means a lot of sacrifices. Nobody wants additional taxes. Based off the COVID thing, everybody needs to stay home and stay safe. So people are not spending dollars with sales tax, et cetera. So as we go forth with this, I agree that budgeting is hard to do and sacrifice is hard to do, but at the end of the day, we need to get to the point that we have a balanced budget as required by law. And how we get there, you guys will, in the end, determine that. We can make all the recommendations from the staff that we want to, but at the end of the day, the board will determine how those funds are spent. As we saw earlier, CSA is a huge expense for the county, so is jail costs as you look through those bills. So at the end, there's very few dollars after we give the school about $15 million in debt service, very little wiggle worm unless there's additional revenue. There's only one way to get additional revenue, and that's either through taxes or additional items. As you noticed in the budget amendments from the General Assembly that came through last week when they met, they have delayed implementation of a lot of local taxes until 2021. Some of those things we had talked about here, cigarette tax, the ability to increase transient lodging, are no longer on the table for you to even consider for this coming year. So as we move forth with this, as we talk about it, I think some of us, probably myself more than most, are so accustomed to looking at these numbers, we need to, as we talk, explain them a little fuller and make sure that everybody understands what those means. Bottom line, $34 million to be split between all the departments, county. Schools always are the number one priority of the county. Even with the current budget shown, it's still around $15 million, including debt service. So
Where is that 34 million at on the report here?
34 is the local. You go down Tracy,
Well, mine's got 39.
which page you're looking at, Tracy? Bottom line shows 43 million, then you've
The
got
last one.
the black.
Page 5.
You have to take off the $4 million or $5 million you budget for delinquent tax collection. I apologize for that. It was included. You're not going to get it. The reason for pulling that out is we had a lot of questions in our citizens' comments of why we couldn't do it. But I think if you go through this carefully, you will understand what's happening with the county budget when you compare it to the financial audit and report that we had from Robinson Farmer Cox.
Typically, also, you have about anywhere from $3 to $4 million each month coming out from August, or July, August, September, and October. So if that $9 million is here and you're not bringing much income, by the time you get to October, you run close to zero, and that's what we've had the last couple of years. We've had to borrow money, the last 3 years. We've had to borrow $1 million, 1 year, $2 million to get through, so we could pay the salaries. So that's where you need that extra fund balance we talk about. You have to have it to get through to October, at least last year anyway, to get through to when your taxes start coming in. Hopefully this year it will even out. But that remains to be seen. We'll see that when they start coming in, hopefully.
Based off all those comments, I'd asked you to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
I have a motion and a second to accept the treasurer's report. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the enterprise zone, current incentives.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, currently, right behind the memo, you will see the current enterprise zone incentives that Carroll County offers. In the areas that you have designated, which include the Wildwood area and also the industrial park over at exit 14, currently you provide water and sewer credits, building permit and zoning fee waivers, and a couple other items. I would propose that in lieu of how those are currently stated, that we change the wording on those to sort of mirror the state incentives, which require a minimum number of new jobs be created, the minimum pay be 175% of minimum wage, and a minimum of investment to qualify for those incentives. And all those incentives be paid by or borne by the entity that's offering the incentives. For example, if it's Carroll County and the Carroll County Industrial Park, then Carroll County do a return on investment calculation, and if those taxes are, when they come in, they be rebated, let the industry pay them, but then be repaid based off the tax rate. And the same thing for the water and sewer. That way, if you do it in that manner, person collecting the taxes and having an agreement in place, you understand how much you have to pay on an annual basis back to the PSA, so they're not burdened with that. The people collecting the taxes are burdened with that. That would also happen over in Wildwood, that if the group over there provided incentives, they would pay those incentives instead of Carroll County.
Okay. Does everybody understand what he's talking about?
Yes, I'll make a motion, we accept those changes in the enterprise zone.
Okay, I have a motion that we accept the enterprise zone changes. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay, that brings us to board member comments. And looks like you're first on the list, Mr. McCraw. Excuse me? Okay, all right. Mr. Hill?
I want to thank everybody for all the emails and everything we get. Some of them not too happy, but I try to answer each and every one of them, and if I haven't already, I will be doing that. It's going to be tough as we go forward, but we'll just have to see where it goes.
Anything else?
That'd be it.
Okay, Mr. McCraw? Robbie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank everyone that does take interest in what we're doing and tries to get involved and ask questions. And I thank everybody on this board for all the work that they put in. And we've come under a tremendous amount of scrutiny here lately. And with that being said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board direct our county attorney to start an examination or investigation of the county finances and search for any and all discrepancies he might find, and also to even look into some of the current agreements that we have going on. And I ask that he use the ability and means of any investigative form that's out there that he might deem necessary.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor, and I think y'all heard Mr. Robbie, second? And I have another second by the other Mr. McCraw. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes.
That's all I have,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chair. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Littrell?
First of all, I appreciate Mr. Dalton going over the budget, and hopefully that will answer some of the citizens' questions. I know the budgets can be confusing, and $9 million looks like a lot of money, but it has to go a long ways in a short period of time, so I'm glad you did that, and if anybody has any questions about the budget, I'm sure that you'll answer them for them.
More than that.
The other thing I'd like to mention is, I didn't feel like I had really enough time to digest our changes in the insurance plan that we went over 2 weeks ago. It was something I had not seen until we got here that night, and I know we were on a deadline to get everything switched over, but I'd like to reserve the possibility of revisiting some of those numbers in a future time when we have more time to look at them.
Do you make that in form of a motion?
I think I can just do it.
Okay, okay. All right, everybody understand what he's saying?
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else, Dr. Littrell?
No, I didn't realize at the time how much it was going to impact some of our employees. I think our most important assets, asset in our county is our employees. So we keep them happy and employed.
Okay, thank you. I agree with you totally. Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore?
I'm going to start off by thanking everybody for all they do, and like Dr. Littrell said, we need to, I feel, look at this insurance at what the family and the dual is. You know, our citizens are important just like our employees, and we need to make sure that our employees are taken care of. We've got some great employees, and I'd like to see them the ones that are off right now, get back to work. And I want to remind everybody to fill out the census thing out there. Sometimes we forget about that, but it's important for our community to get funds down the road. So I just want to remind everybody to take a few minutes and fill out the census. And I want to thank EMS and the fire and the police department for all they do. And I guess that's all. Thank you.
Okay, looks like it's my turn. And again, I want to thank all the citizens that they've been keeping up with what's going on here in the county, and all the emails and the phone calls and stuff. Got an important announcement to make. As of tonight, I will step down as chair of this board, and I will also resign from the Board of Supervisors. Okay, I cannot put up with this anymore. This is a farce up here. Nobody's working together. Nobody knows nothing till we get here. And I'm tired of it. I am fed up with it. So as of tonight, I step down as chair of the Board of Supervisors, and I will resign June 30th, 2020 from the Board of Supervisors. Thank you. Next item is County Administrator's comments.
Mr. Chairman, there's three things I want to talk about. One is the U.S. Marine Corps Expeditionary Operations Training Group is looking at holding a training session in Carroll County over at the old training center. They have asked Colonel Eric Young is the officer in charge that we enter into an agreement that we understand that they're going to do the training over there at the gala, over at the training center, and that would happen this summer. And I'd request permission to, along with Sheriff Kevin Kemp, to sign that agreement.
Okay. Anything else? I mean, that's state property. I don't know why we have to sign anything on it. That belongs to the state of Virginia.
It is the state of Virginia, but this agreement, the U.S. Marine Corps wants us to understand that they're going to be over there and just he's notified Sheriff Kemp and also Emergency Services
Okay.
of that. I think it's more of just a notification that we understand that they will be there for a training period.
Okay. Anything else?
We received a letter from Piper's Gap Rescue Squad. I'll read it. Mac Tolbert, Captain. He sent this in on May the 4th. I'm requesting to sell our 2011 Ford F-450 ambulance Rescue 74 to Galax Volunteer Fire Department for the amount of $50,000. The money received for this truck will go towards the purchase of a new response truck per our discussions with county officials and the EMS captains during our EMS squad. The second letter is from the Galax Volunteer Fire Department. It says, Dear Mac, per our conversation, the Galax Fire Department will purchase the ambulance you have for the amount of $50,000 depending on the approval of a loan by Skyline National Bank, which is a loan to them. We are in the process of purchasing property and adding new construction intend to combine the ambulance purchase in with the loan. I do not anticipate any issues with the loan. At this time, it is in the process. Please let me know if you have any questions. David C. Hankley. And I believe the county attorney has prepared an agreement of sorts for the board to consider for this transfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I prepared an agreement between the squad and the county to authorize that sale to the Galax Volunteer Fire Department. It contains an acknowledgement that the policy of the board has been that whenever public funds are contributed to the volunteer fire or EMS agencies in the county, that certain procedures be followed with regard to equipment that's purchased with county funds, that the county board of supervisors does consent to this sale, that the funds shall be held in trust until such time as by the rescue squad until such time as the replacement vehicle is agreed on and the expenditure of those funds are approved. It also does contain a reservation subject to appropriation that nothing is deemed an implied consent until you've actually taken the vote to approve the purchase of the new vehicle, and that no further county funds are committed at this time until they're appropriated.
Thank you. Anything else? No. Next item is informational package. Any information on the informational package? Okay, hearing nothing on that, I'll move to adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, before
Yes.
you pick up that one thing, with regard to the proposed agreement, if the board would be inclined to approve that agreement at this time and give that consent for the sale, that would be appreciated.
Okay. Y'all heard what the counselor asked. Do we need to make a resolution? Anybody have a resolution to approve that sale? Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. McCraw?
Yes.
Dr. Littrell?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. Okay. All righty. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, vote aye. Aye. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Tom, did you get that email? I sent that to you in an email.